This new research is proof of extraterrestrial alien life, claims Philip Mantle. The U.S. Congress has been told UFOs are real. We discovered lost photos which prove alien contact has already been made, writes Philip Mantle. And in recent days, the internet has been buzzing after former U.S. intelligence officer David Grush testified under oath before members of the U.S. Congress that he had seen conclusive proof that the U.S. authorities have recovered crashed UFOs and their occupants. The one thing on everyone's mind was, of course, show us the evidence, Mr. Grush. Sadly, he could not, as it was classified, but the fact is there are cases already out there that would stand up in court of law and prove that something quite extraordinary has happened. Such cases are close encounters, or better known in the popular imagination as alien abductions. One such case that my colleague, the writer says, Dr. Irene Scott in the US have been working on does just that. The date of the close encounter was 11th of October 1973. The location was the Pascagoula River in Mississippi. Two shipyard workers, Charles Hickson, 42, and Calvin Parker, 18, decided to go fishing on the river after work. Both anglers were not having much luck that night, and they thought about calling it a night when something happened that would change their lives forever. A dazzling blue light from behind them illuminated the entire scene. Turning around, both men watched in awe as a rugby ball-shaped object descended. A door opened and three bizarre-looking humanoid entities glided out across the terrain to the two terrified onlookers. Both Parker and Hickson later said that night made their way to their local sheriff's department to tell them that they had been abducted by aliens. It wasn't long before the story found its way into the media, and the story went all around the world. Charles Hickson readily told his story, but Calvin Parker wanted simply to be left alone. Hickson co-authored a book with William Mendez in 1983, and it wasn't until 2018 that Calvin Parker finally told his story in full for the first time. It was Calvin Parker's book and subsequent publicity that made this case probably the best documented such event on record. It wasn't necessarily what Calvin Parker related in his two books, but it is what happened when they were published. Much to everyone's surprise, more and more first-hand eyewitnesses began to step forward. A number of these witnesses reported seeing something a few days prior to the Parker-Hickson encounter, and others a few days after. UFO sightings were made in and around Pascagoula, Mississippi, and in neighboring states as well. And added to that, more eyewitnesses stepped forward with their accounts of what they observed on that very same night. Two of these witnesses were on the other bank of the Pascagoula River that night, at the very same time as Parker and Hickson were experiencing their close encounter. One last thing that left the authors completely baffled is what could be proof of a physical contact with something by Parker and Hickson that night. Both men reported that when the bizarre-looking humanoids took hold of them, they felt a kind of scratch or prick, something similar to an injection. We uncovered a document written October 13, 1973, just 2 days after the encounter, which describes a physical examination of the two men and that puncture wounds, quote-unquote, were located on Charles Hickson's arm and Calvin Parker's foot. The document, located in 2018, also mentioned that photographs of these marks were taken. In the file, sadly, there was no sign of these photographs. In 2021, when this book was being written, but the authors received an email from a colleague that mentioned he had accidentally found a couple of photos that he thought would be interesting. The photos in question were those mentioned in the puncture wounds document obtained 3 years earlier, and show marks on Charles Hickson's arm and Calvin Parker's foot. These photos will be published in our book for the very first time. This book concentrates on the independent eyewitness testimony, the puncture wounds evidence, the hypnosis sessions of the new witnesses of Calvin Parker, both of which were conducted exclusively for the book, and it's left for the reader to draw their own conclusions. The book is fully illustrated with photographs, documents, paper cuttings, and exclusive artwork by UK artist Jason Gleaves, and has a foreword by Calvin Parker. And we believe the evidence provided in the book, if it was taken to court, could prove something truly extraordinary took place that October night in 1973 in the Pascagoula area. And this year, 2023, will be the 50th anniversary of this encounter, and we provided all the evidence we have. All we ask is for you to take an objective look and evidence to see if you agree with it or not. Philip Mantle is a veteran UFO researcher, author and publisher in the UK. Dr. Irina Scott is from Ohio, USA, and received her PhD in physiology from the University of Missouri. She too is an international published author. And their book is called Beyond Reasonable Doubt, The Pascagoula Alien Abduction, is to be published in a little while, September 1st. And this is by Philip Mantle on Express UK. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.